Good evening, everybody. Welcome and welcome back. We've been on hiatus for a couple of weeks. We're ready to go forward. It's a good Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh Elul, and what a time to start talking to our special guests as we do every Tuesday evening. Tonight we have with us Rabbi Mordechai Gershon from Chabad of South Loop, here to talk to us about his shlichus in South Loop and specifically about his experience recently at the DNC hosted here in Chicago. So Rabbi Gershon, thank you. Good evening. Welcome. Really appreciate your spending this time with us. Thank you for joining us and looking forward to hearing about your story. Okay, we're not hearing you. Are you on mute, Rabbi?
I'm feeling old.
There you go.
Good evening, Chodesh Tov. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
To be with you all here tonight.
So take a few minutes and give us a little background, please, about what your shlichus looks like there in South Loop. How long have you been there? What kind of stuff is going on? Give us a little feel for life in Chabad of the South Loop.
So I was told I only have about 20 minutes, so it's going to be a little tough, but we've been here 5 years now. We moved here a little over 5 years ago, and thank God it's been a real blessing. I mean, we are here for the local community. Believe it or not, there are Jews that live in South Loop, and we, on a day-to-day basis are dealing with people in the local community, hosting community events, educational events, adult education programs, Shabbat dinners, and everything of that sort. And then there's another very interesting element of our shlichus, of our Chabad work here, which is not something that we deal with necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but occasionally, and that is the various visitors who come to town. So, there are, throughout the year, there are different conferences. We're not far from McCormick Place. We're about a 20-minute walk from this large conference center, the largest conference center in North America. And, throughout the year, there are various different business conferences, medical conferences, other special events. And in addition to servicing the local community, we also try to, service every Jew coming through our neighborhood. So just to epitomize. Well,
give us a little background about how you got involved. The DNC is coming to Chicago. How did you see that this fell under your purview, your mission, and what was the process for getting involved?
Excellent question. So, I mean, as mentioned,
we only ask excellent questions. We don't ask any unexcellent questions.
As mentioned, there are, various conferences, be it business conferences, medical conferences, urology conference. We'll have 30 urologists over for Friday night dinner. So here, when it's the Democratic National Convention, we felt and assumed would be no different. There are going to be many Jews there, of course, and we thought that this would be a beautiful opportunity to engage and, service and bring more light and mitzvahs and opportunities for the Jewish population.
Run into any difficulties in getting permission to have a booth there? Was there any pushback against it?
So it's sort of, there were different stages as far as getting it, set up. And, we reached out several months ago, and, it's sort of a matter of getting through to the right person. That's, what we've noticed with other things and with this as well. So, we reached out through various, methods. We reached out to politicians that we know. We reached out to community members and lay leaders who we know who might have involvement. And, little by little made headway to the right people to be able to organize this. I mean, it's actually a little bit of a shgacha pratis, divine providence. How we ended up having the booth there was not.
People think everything is divine providence.
Even this.
Even this. So how does it work at the DNC? Are there other booths there that are not directly related to politics?
So this particular area where we were, it was called the Dempalooza, or Convention Expo. And there was a variety of booths. I mean, there were booths selling, merchandise. There were booths selling random stuff like candles. There was the Shedd Aquarium had a booth. The Illinois Holocaust Museum had a booth, and various attractions around Chicago and businesses around Chicago had booths. So there were quite a few that were not, specifically connected in any political way. And that is, we were
So if
there.
you have the
that
Shedd
as well.
Aquarium booth and they're distributing information about the aquarium, if somebody's selling necklaces and tchotchkes, what is the Chabad of South Loop booth's objective there?
So we were there. We had a few different, I would say, purposes, somewhat connected, but also perhaps unrelated to each other. And that is, number one, just to have a Jewish presence there, to be there, for all the Jewish needs of the attendees and the Jewish population at the convention. So to do that, we had both a booth at the actual convention center inside McCormick Place, but we also had a Jewish hub just a few blocks away, where we hosted, services in the morning and kosher breakfast, et cetera, as there were, a very diverse crowd of Jewish people, including people who are religious and only eat kosher or want to pray with a minyan every single day.
Did these
So
people reach out to you in advance, or how did they learn that there was a breakfast and a mincha and these types of activities? Was there advertising? Did you just sort of spread it word of mouth?
So it's an interesting question. I mean, we created a database and a website with all the information, very simple, jewish@thednc.com. And shared that with whoever we know might be participating, or people who we know people who might be participating. As soon as we created that website and word got out, it actually went pretty viral around at least the Jewish news sites, as well as other forms of media. And quite a few people who we reached out to ended up coming by, but also many people who we weren't aware of also ended up connecting, in both at the booth and also at the hub. But the booth was there just to interact with the people passing by. I mean, there were thousands of people. They estimated about 10,000 people a day passing through the convention expo. So over 4 days, that's 40,000 people. And that was, there were many people who were surprised, but pleasantly surprised, to see a Jewish booth there, as maybe we'll talk about soon.
You mentioned the people who are pleasantly surprised. We know that Chicago DNCs have a long history of not always pleasantness, and especially in light of all the recent activity. And we saw the protests and so on. When you posted Jewish at the DNC, did you find any pushback, any threats, any negative, any safety concerns?
So leading up, we actually, there were some hesitations and some concerns, security wise, as far as the hub. The booth was actually inside the secure perimeter. You had to go through Secret Service to get there. So we weren't anticipating any physical violence, but perhaps harassment or things like that. And then the hub was just outside the perimeter. So that location we actually did not disclose online. Only once people reached out did we share that address as an added security measure. And I'll just say, we were there for 4 days, and we estimate, I mean, there were thousands of people who passed by the booth. We estimate over 800 people actually interacted with the booth and stopped by the booth, and we did not receive a single negative comment.
Beautiful.
On the contrary, there were many, many very positive, interactions with people, both Jews and non-Jews, who stopped by just thanking us for being there. People came over, emotional with tears in their eyes just to say, like, thank you, Rabbi, for being here. You don't know how much this means to us to see a Jewish presence here.
Fantastic. So walk us through the day. What time did you arrive? What time did the people arrive? Tell us about the interaction. Please share some pictures, anything you can to give us a flavor of what the experience was like on the ground at the DNC.
So, in short, I mean, it kind of feels like the 4 day, now it's already a week later or a week and a half later, whatever it is, who's counting anyway. But at the time, it sort of felt like one long day, the 4 days, at least on my part. But in short, I mean, the booth was open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day, which was the time that the daytime meetings were taking place at the convention. Caucus meetings, other types of meetings were taking place right downstairs of where the expo was and where our booth was. And before that, each morning we had, Shachris in the morning, I believe it was 8 o'clock each morning, followed by a nice kosher breakfast. So we went there and then right away continued on to the booth. In addition to the booth, there were also various other activities that took place. I mean, some of you may be familiar that there was a hostage square and, not far from the United Center and, other various auxiliary events and events surrounding the DNC, which we made a point of attending as well. We had over 20 volunteers, many Chabad rabbis from different areas around Chicagoland, from the far suburbs, from around the city, from all over, volunteered at a given time. We had sometimes 5 or 6 volunteers at a time at the booth. At peak hours, at slower times, sometimes we have 1 or 2, and and also people in various locations. So it was really a group effort, and we're very appreciative to the many shluchim and volunteers and yeshiva students who helped out, and community members as well, a few of them, with the setup. It was really, and also in the planning as well, there were some other Chabad rabbis, Rabbi Meir Shimon Moskowitz from Chabad of Illinois, who was involved, and Rabbi Abraham Kagan, who runs the liaison, who's the liaison of government affairs for Chabad of Illinois.
So can you drop some names? Did you meet anybody famous? Did you meet anybody we ever heard of? Any prominent politicians? You got any pictures? Anything to give us a little flavor of what the day will look like?
So, yeah, I mean, we had the biggest variety of people passing through the booth. As far as big names, I mean, I don't follow politics myself too much, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz made a point of stopping by the booth, which Congresswoman from Florida, who I believe was the chair of the previous DNC. I think the previous one was actually canceled because of COVID, but the one before that, 2016. So she specifically reached out to her, and she made a point of stopping by the booth. I do have a photo somewhere if I could pull them up. We also went to, as they refer to him at the DNC, second mensch, Doug Emhoff. So we were invited to a private event, which he was going to be speaking at. I believe it was the only event aside for the arena, the televised part of the DNC, that he was scheduled to speak at. And it was a small event, maybe 75, 100 people in a location off-site. And so myself and another shliach, Rabbi Kagan, we went over there to go and meet him, not just meet him, but also bring a special Jewish book. We had at the booth, we didn't really describe the booth or share any pictures of the booth yet, but we had various books. We had many things, maybe we'll get to that soon. But one of the books that we had was the Jewish Book of Knowledge, which was published by the Jewish Learning Institute. Phenomenal book. And so we brought a copy to that event. It's a large book. We brought it to that event to give it to him. It didn't end up panning out. We were by one entrance. He ended up coming in the other entrance, and he did not stick around very long. He sort of dashed out right after his speech. So that he didn't end up receiving the book. We'll have to mail it to him. But as far as names, and then many other people, we had reporters, from various news outlets, across the spectrum, from very liberal to very conservative news outlets who stopped by the booth. And yeah, I mean, just so many different people. Thank God.
Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you can share some pictures and give us a little feel for it, that would be great too.
Let's see what we can pull up over here. Share screen.
Okay, who do we got here?
Is that working?
Yeah, we see
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Is this somebody we're supposed to know in the middle there?
Okay. So these pictures are not in any particular order, but I will give some background on some of them, including this one. This is actually a short little cute story. We were by an event. We were by a Jewish event at the DNC, a private Jewish event, and for whatever reason, some of the politicians, they run a little bit late. They run on Chabad time, and the event was scheduled to end already. But there were some important figures who were still coming, some governors from other prominent states, and we decided it would be nice to wait for them before we leave. So we waited for them, and then after they gave their speeches, we continued on and were, rushing to another private event in a very different part of the city. And we were worried actually that by the time we get there, this other event might be over or, wrapping up. But it turns out we pull up, we Uber over, we pull up and we get out and we're walking into the lobby of this building where this other event was taking place. And we bump into this man right here. His name is Michael Beals. He is Joe Biden's rabbi from Delaware. And
Nice.
he gave the invocation the previous night, the night before at the arena. He said a pasuk or something or a prayer before the president, Joe Biden, spoke. And he was in the lobby and we asked him, did you rep tefillin yet today? So he said that actually I do often, I do put it on, but I haven't yet today. So we said, do you want to do it quickly? So he said, sure, let's do it. And we wrapped right then and there in the lobby. And as we were wrapping, the security from the building actually came running over and they're like, is everything okay? Do you want us to call an ambulance? They had apparently never seen tefillin before and thought it was some sort of medical procedure that we were doing. But we said
It was spiritual medical.
everything is fine. It happens to be that institution has to teach some more diversity training to their employees to learn about the Jewish rituals. But anyhow, so it was a beautiful experience, and we wrapped tefillin with them, and it turns out that so we snapped a photo of it, and and then afterwards, we were thinking it's probably not appropriate to really share this photo anywhere because he's a rabbi, from
A
Delaware.
rabbi
And
wearing tefillin, is that allowed?
yeah, but being helped by other rabbis to put on tefillin. So we weren't sure. And turns out at the arena that night, we bumped into him over there in the out of 50,000 people, we see him. And he said, did you end up posting that picture anywhere? And we said, we actually didn't, out of sensitivity. So he says, no. He says, if it'll encourage one more Jew to do a mitzvah, please share it wherever you can.
Oh, he's a Lubavitcher.
So that's the background of this picture. Okay, this is, I guess, the booth when it was in its early stages of being set up, a little more advanced. So as you could see, we have books over here. We have Toward a Meaningful Life. We have a book about the Rebbe. We had books also about Israel, a phenomenal book that just came out from Sichos in English, an organization in New York about the Torah view and the Rebbe's opinion on Israel, which is very thorough and pragmatic, and very, important for politicians to be educated on. So we had those books as well. Let's see what else we got over here. Oh, this is going somewhere else. Okay, this is going a
Pictures
different
of a
direction.
family vacation. What do we got here?
Let's see, this way.
Okay, who's that?
Who is that? I don't remember. This is actually our local alderman from here, from South Loop, one of the three that we bumped into the arena, as well as her right-hand man, who happens to be my neighbor. That's Rabbi Shemtov, who visited from Washington, D.C. This is just, at the breakfast. Again,
Oh, this is
this
out
is
in the
a
Hostage Square.
Hostage Square. This one of them, it's actually their bar mitzvah, first time putting them to fill in
Beautiful.
over here.
Was there a lot of security around the Hostage Square?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't overdone, but there was quite a bit. There's just the
Early
Minyan
mincha?
Marav going on at the arena. This is
Who's that?
actually a fellow from Massachusetts, and he right away came over. He was like, "Do you know the Chabad rabbi in Massachusetts in Longmeadow, where the Kasevskis are?" Some of you may know. There's a Kasevsky that lives here in Chicago in Riverwoods, and so he's very connected with his parents and his siblings over there. So this
Beautiful.
picture actually came back to me through them, not from us. This is a New York Post reporter, John Levine. This is a woman from Finland
Wow.
who, came from overseas to be here for the convention. She was very, very appreciative to see a Jewish presence here. Here are some guys from Washington, D.C., some big influencers, 1 million followers on Twitter and stuff who
Wow,
came
he looks like he's 15.
to the what?
He looks like he's 15.
They're married now, both of them. This is Saul Werdiger. He's the chairman of the Aguda from New
Oh, wow.
York. Very
Beautiful.
fine man, does a lot of good work in New York. Gershon Chassid. This is some delegate from Texas. Again, these pictures are in no particular order and sort of arbitrary, but
Called
I
Shy.
will.
That's cute.
This is, so I'll tell you the background of this story, of this picture. This is, I'll see if I have a picture of them actually right here. I don't think a lot of the photos may have not downloaded, but there was a non-Jewish couple who are delegates from, I don't even remember where, maybe the Carolinas or somewhere, and they stopped by the booth, and we had stuff for Jews and non-Jews as well. We had the arcs that we were giving out. Let me see if I have an arc right here showing you. That is, there's a
There you go.
little arc, as you can see, little yellow, like Noah's Ark. But in addition to looking like an arc is also an acronym, which stands for Acts of Random Kindness. And so we ordered 1,000 of these, and we were giving them out to politicians to bring back to their offices. And the idea is that whenever they have a chance, throw in a coin, and when it's full, give it to someone in need or any charity of their choice. And the idea is spreading acts of random kindness. So we had those, as well as these wristbands. If you read it closely, it says Am Yisrael
Shy
Chai.
for
A
Chicago.
little play on the words Am Yisrael Chai, and people were loving that. And so this was a non-Jewish couple that stopped by, and delegates, and they said, "We support you guys. We love you guys. We love Israel." So I said, "You got to wear one of these. Let me give you guys." So we gave it to them, and then they send me this picture wearing it in the arena that night proudly. They came back the next day to ask for more for their colleagues and friends. So that was very nice as well. Let's see if we
Were there
got any-
other religious groups there distributing literature, or were you the only sort of religious group there?
Not that I noticed. Honestly, I didn't have a chance to walk around too much, but I don't believe there were any other religious booths. There was a prayer room, not the one that we used, but a prayer room in the convention center that had some sort of mats that were used for, I guess, some other
Nap
sort of
time.
religious prayers.
All right.
I
Well,
don't know
Rabbi
about
Gershon, I want to
nap
thank you.
time, but map time, mat time.
Thank you for representing Torah and for making Yiddishkeit available for the Jews who visited. If anybody wants to unmute and jump in with a very quick question, otherwise we want to be respectful of the rabbi's time. We want to thank him for joining us. Thank you for providing Torah and mitzvah opportunities for the Jews who came there, for being a strong Jewish presence, which is so necessary now with so much that's going on.
Rabbi Mordechai, any holiday card stories for the time being? Any holiday card stories? Any holiday card stories of holiday stories for my family that we can use of what you experienced for Rosh
Holiday
Hashanah?
stories. Excellent question. Yes. So I'll just share something actually just popped into my mind, and when you mentioned that, as we were driving to the arena one of the evenings, from the booth or from one of the other events, driving towards the United Center. So I was in an Uber, myself and Rabbi Levi Shem Tov from Washington, D.C. And as we're just a couple blocks from the United Center, so we noticed there was a senator walking on the street over there, Brad Sherman from California. So Levi Shem Tov recognized him. So he shouts out to him. He says, "Brad, do you want to come in, hop in our Uber? We could, you don't need to walk. We'll take you a little closer." So he says, "Sure." And he hops in, he gets in the front, and it was just another 2 blocks. We get out over there, that's as close as the vehicles could come. And then as we get out, we, right away there are people escorting. "Oh, you're a senator. Okay, you go over here." And he's like, "What about my crew?" So the rabbis came along as well, saved us probably an hour and a half of lines or so. And
do a favor, get rewarded.
What? Yes.
Wait, let him finish. There's something else coming on. Go ahead.
Mitzvahs all around. Anyhow, so he shares, first of all, that he's very close with the Chabad rabbi in Agoura Hills, California, Rabbi Brisky, where he lives or is his constituents. But in any case, it sort of brought this idea home on a very, very minuscule level of what tonight is all about. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh Elul, the beginning of Elul, and we know that it's Melech Basada. It's the time when the king is in the field. Throughout the entire year, the king is in his inner chambers, and you have to go through all these protocols and go through all these security and arrange a meeting and everything to reach the king. But now, during Chodesh Elul, we say the king is in the field. The king is accessible. He's here. We can ask him whatever we want. We can connect with him on a higher level, on a deeper level, on a closer level, and on a very, very minute and a very, very minuscule way. You sort of see that by the convention, throughout the year in Capitol Hill. I don't hang out there that much, but to get in, to see the vice president or to meet with one of the senators or whatever it is, there is usually more protocol. You don't just bump into them on the street and take an Uber together. But over here by the convention, sort of everyone is just around. This is what it is. Everyone is accessible. They're much more approachable, and it's sort of gleaned on me, this lesson of Melech Basada on a very minute level. So if you asked about a holiday lesson, that's just one small takeaway to think of. And then of course, just how people were so proud to fill in, to do a mitzvah at the booth in front of their colleagues, in front of their other politicians, in front of the media, in front of everything, just to be proud of who they are, it was very beautiful to see. I mean, there were hundreds. We literally put on tefillin with hundreds of people throughout the 4 days, and many of them, or quite a few, were for their first time, celebrating sort of a bar mitzvah there at the DNC of all places. So that was something very, very beautiful and inspiring to see. And just the amount of support, even though what we see in the media and what we see everywhere, there's a lot of hate and a lot of darkness going on around there, but so many people came over, just to share how they support us, they love us, they appreciate what we're doing, both Jews and non-Jews as well. So just something to that to me was very beautiful to see. Yes.
So there were Gentiles putting on the tefillin with you?
So we had other things for Gentiles. We had, and this wasn't exclusively for Gentiles, but we had Rugelach, of course, at the booth, which was a big hit. I think they all got polished every day. And we had the arcs and the wristbands, which were for something which arcs are universal. The idea of charity, this is one of the universal mitzvahs that everyone can do to share with others and help others. Tefillin is more a Jewish commandment for Jewish males. So we did that with the Jewish passersby of the booth.
Was Brad German Jewish that you were talking? The guy from California, was he Jewish?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Jewish and proud.
Did you have any delays getting in with at all? I had a friend here from Montana who was a delegate, and she missed the roll call because it took her 2.5 hours to get into the place for it, because of changes in credentials and so forth. Did that happen to you at all?
So, excellent question. Going into the convention center, McCormick Place, where our booth was relatively little traffic. I was actually surprisingly very little traffic. A lot of people, a lot of businesses were shut, I guess, and therefore there were less cars driving on the streets. So it was pretty easy getting there back and forth and getting in. By the United Center, on the other hand, it was a little more chaotic. More lines, especially when you're not with the senator. However,
Always travel with the senator. That's the key.
Just as an example, the last night when they do, when they inaugurate, or however you call it, Kamala Harris as the presidential candidate. So I was there online. I was very busy with other things, but I came a little bit later on in the middle of that evening, and the line was, I would say, at least an hour and a half, to get in. And I was standing in line, and it was shortly before sundown, and there happened to be some pro-Palestinian protesters protesting near that line. A very, very small amount of them, I would say maybe 20, probably no more than 20 of them. And that's, by the way, the only protesters that I saw pretty much throughout the entire 4 days. And so I had to pass them, to get to the back of the line. And then as the line is moving, getting closer to them. And it so happened to be that as it was about to be sundown time to daven mincha, the afternoon prayer was right when I was exactly opposite where they were standing and protesting. But it's time to pray. So I told the person next to me in line, I said, I'm going to have to, you could continue moving, but I'm stationary for the next 5 minutes. I'm praying mincha right here. So, I put on my gartel and I pray mincha. And literally, I was probably 15 feet away from them, and they happened to be east of me, so facing them as well. And they did not say a word. They did not say anything to me. There were some people there that were trying to film, and they were getting excited, show a guy praying and these people, and there happened to be an Australian reporter that was standing right behind me in line, and as people were trying to film, he stood and blocked, like he said, it's disrespectful, he's trying to pray, let him do his thing, which I thought was kind of nice. But yeah, but the idea that I guess the way I got into this is you're asking about lines. Yeah, the lines getting to the United Center could be very long. But my takeaway from that particular event was, be proud of who you are, and people respect that.
And who did you
Yeah.
say said leave him alone, he's praying? Was that the television reporter?
It was a report. I don't know if a television reporter, but a reporter from Australia.
From Australia, okay.
Okay, we want to thank the rabbi very much for his time and for being patient to answer all the questions. We're going to say goodnight now. Remind everybody, come back tomorrow night for Tanya. And thank you again, Rabbi, for all you do throughout the year, and especially for representing and accommodating all the Jews at the DNC. Really appreciate your time and really appreciate your sharing it with us. Good night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, and good night and Chodesh Tov.